Welcome to Startup Conversations with HDFC Bank. Recently, we celebrated the National Startup Day, and this is an opportune time to recognize the important role that startups play in the economy. India is rearing to be a $5 trillion economy by 2027. There's energy, ideas, and a surge in innovation in the startup ecosystem. What makes a business successful? What is it that investors look for to believe in an idea? To shed more light on this, we have with us today a very special guest who has conceptualized and established India's first endowment fund at IIT Delhi. Today, he manages over $500 million worth of investments and has spent 25 years across the private equity, consulting, and M&A space. I'm delighted to be in conversation with Vikram Gupta, founder and managing partner of Ivy Gap Ventures. Welcome, Vikram. I'd like to really get your perspective as one of the pioneers in the field of investments. To what, in terms of what is your outlook for 2024, and how do you see the startup scene in India playing out this year?
Thank you, Sonali, for having me part of this program. I think 2024, I'm quite optimistic this year. This is an election year. And I think a lot of what has happened in 2023 and 2022 was an outcome of what happened in 2021. And post-COVID, things have changed quite substantially. In fact, we've been investing now in the market from a Fund 3, for example, we deployed 600 crores in the last 12 months. I think this was a perfect time to make investments. But when you look at 2024, a lot of dollar capital is actually sitting on the borderlines. 85% of the capital in the Indian startup ecosystem is actually dollar capital. So as things change on the dollar side, it impacts hugely in terms of what's happening in the Indian startup ecosystem. I believe that post May, June, you will start seeing much larger rounds happening, Series C, Series D rounds. You will see $50 million, $100 million checks plus happening. 2023 saw only 2 unicorns getting added to the ecosystem. I think 2024 will see a much larger number of unicorns as compared to 2022 and 2023 put together. And I think 2024, second half, you will see some very good exits happening. Some M&A happening. You will see IPO activity actually increasing quite substantially, which is all good for the startups which are actually now scaling up. The next 10 years, in fact, look very good. So for a fund which is starting now, which is a Fund 3, which is a 10-year fund, we believe that this is a perfect starting point where we see we're looking to be part of this journey of India becoming the third largest economy in the world and adding another $3.5 trillion in the next 10 years. Expecting about 500 unicorns in the time frame. And we're quite excited about it to be part of this.
So you're very optimistic, which is great. What do you think are going to be some of the key themes playing out in 2024 from an investment standpoint?
Technology is going to continue to play an increasing role overall. And you'll see a lot of new age technologies actually getting adopted more and more across sectors. Of course, we'll see more and more generative AI actually being used across sectors. We're also expecting a lot more focus on climate tech, sustainability, clean tech areas actually becoming more important for startups across different areas, and therefore becoming more important themes for investing from an investment perspective. The other areas that we are quite excited about are health tech. Fintech continues to be an area of importance and excitement. And of course, consumer tech, while there are areas which have already been tested and grown quite substantially, we do see certain opportunities which are still not tested much. So we're quite excited about consumer tech as well.
Now, you've obviously been a very successful investor, venture capitalist for over now almost 25 years. So what is your real investment thesis and framework? What kind of drives an investment? When do you know an idea is good and you have to make the investment?
So Sonali, before even we look at the idea, we actually look at the people behind the idea. So for us, we are a people-focused fund. We actually approach this whole investing world through a community angle. So we have this IIT alumni behind our fund. So we have this IIT Alumni Trust with the distinguished alumni and the deans on the board. And that actually helps us also connect with the entire ecosystem. And we've extended that to the IIMs, to the other educational institutions. We also give back part of our profits to the educational institutions as endowments. And that's how the concept of the IIT Delhi endowment also came up. Our focus is to identify very, very smart entrepreneurs who are doing it for the right reason. And then we look at top down, which is specific sectors where we identify areas of opportunities, where we then do a lot of research in cases of where the funding is happening, where there are opportunities for large scale businesses. We look for $1 billion in revenues happening over the next 10 years, 15 years, and there's a potential like that. We would love to go after those ideas. And the other thing we look for is capital efficiency. So we are okay to invest in number 2 player as long as they're highly capital efficient.
Coming to exits, now one is, of course, it's a good idea, you jump in, but when do you know when is the right time to exit? And exits are critical if the ecosystem has to remain buoyant.
So we are a venture capital fund, right? We manage third-party capital, so we have to return the money that we've taken from the investor. We are a 10-year fund, but we look for an average holding period of about 5 to 6 years in each company. Our primary mode of exit that we look for is M&A, even though IPO would always be a good choice if the company actually reaches that stage. But out of 10 very profitable exits that we've done so far, 9 are M&A, and 1 is a secondary exit, but that was an amazing secondary exit that we had in a company called Purple, which returned our entire fund, actually became India's first dragon in a VC portfolio. From an M&A perspective, I believe that the market is going to become even more active. You will see more and more corporates getting involved. We've seen Reliance has been actively buying. Some of these large corporates are actively looking for buying companies. It's going to be very good for startups.
What is your advice to startup investors? I mean, to startup investors as well as to the startups themselves.
I think as more and more domestic capital opens up, the investors in India will actually be able to invest more. But if I give an advice to the investors, I think one has to continue to stay focused on areas where they can add value. If I look at venture capital investing, I think VC investing is a lot more about working in partnership and collaboration with startups and be able to add substantial value, and therefore invest in only those companies where you can bring a lot more intellectual capital, your network into play. For the startups, I think it's very important to choose the right investor. Don't just take the first check that comes your way. Choose the partners, because it's a long-term partnership. You have to make sure that you're actually using the capital for the right reasons. Don't raise capital just for the sake of establishing a valuation. If you don't need capital, don't raise it. And I think overall, just stay grounded, just stay focused on what you're doing. Opportunity is huge. I have a question for you.
Okay.
So, of course, the government has been committed to the startup ecosystem. I would like to understand from the perspective of being the largest private bank in the country, how is HDFC playing a role in the startup ecosystem?
So, look, we're a full service bank and we have absolutely innovated a range of products for startups. We recently introduced commercial cards, which are fixed deposit backed for startups. We are very excited about ONDC and what the ONDC ecosystem can do for startups. So, we're actually working to bring startups onto that ecosystem. We're looking at specialized lending. There's the credit guarantee scheme for startups that we're already working on, and we've actually rolled it out a couple of months ago and started actively pursuing that line of lending in addition to other things that we're doing. We've launched the recent, Collect Now that we've spoken about, which is a unique payment gateway that actually brings together all the offline and online modes of payment. So it's actually a real convergence and an innovation in the industry. So we are really, really excited about what we can do for startups. And yes, we've also got GIFT City and our network of overseas branches, where we are actually being able to provide offshore banking services to startups. As you said, 24 is going to be a very big year. And we are absolutely prepared to make sure that we provide all our services to our startups.
That's great.
So thank you, Vikram. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.